的 panel time， 那 panel time 的主题呢是 Investing in Solana， 然后我们要邀请我们 panel time 首先邀请我们 panel time 的主持人 Cindy 林 Community at Evernew， 为大家欢迎一下 Cindy。然后接下来是 Henry L CEO of BTSE Venture Partner at Warpspeed Capital。好，接下来我们要欢迎是 Chien Principal of Infinity Venture Crypto。接下来我们要欢迎的是 Chris Venture Partner of Cherubic。好，掌声欢迎他们。再来要欢迎的是 Justin Starry Engineer at SolanaTW。
Yeah, thank you everyone for being here. That was a great demo of 8 projects. I think one of the best things about being in Web3 is there's no borders, so this panel is going to be in English this time. So because we just looked through 8 incredible projects, and we have on the stage a lot of VCs and people building the foundation of the tools that developers are using, I'd love to get your insights into advice for these projects. But first, let's start off with an intro, maybe starting with Chris, and then we'll move down the line.
Hi, my name is Chris. I'm currently a venture partner at Cherubic Ventures. Before that, I was working at MyCoin and helped to launch their order book exchange.
Everyone, my name is Justin. I'm an engineer on the SolanaTW team. I work on building the blockchain that you guys are all building on. Thank you for building on Solana. It's crazy to see everyone building real stuff on our platform. I've been at Solana for about 3 years, and I started as a web developer working on like the Explorer and the Web3 SDK that you guys are using, and now I work more on the core software, working on transaction processing stuff. So yeah, really happy to be here.
Yeah, and
hi, I'm Ann. I'm the principal of Infinity Venture Crypto. So we are 85 million AUM fund, mainly investing into cryptos. And so far, since inception of August last year, we have invested in over 120 projects. Mainly investments, it's in GameFi, DeFi, Web 3.0. And at the same time, we actually also like a YGGC. So we now look at the market we do the scholarship programs in Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and also Vietnam markets. So if you're a GameFi projects and if you want to expand into like Southeast Asia, besides Philippine markets, please reach out.
Hi everybody, I'm Henry. We're at BTSE. BTSE is a centralized exchange. We have a lot of developers here in Taiwan, also hiring all the time, so hence coming out to events like this to support. Also at Warpspeed Capital, we're a 1-year-old venture capital fund, just about 100 million AUM, investing in DeFi, GameFi, NFTs, etc. So anybody have questions, happy to connect with all the talent over here.
Thank you for the intro. So a couple of the projects were gaming focused and also metaverses. So I did have a question about to Anne, who because IVC has invested over 50 games or more. What kind of features do you look for when projects are building out a gaming ecosystem?
I think in the Web3 space, not just particularly in GameFi, but I think like community is actually one of the very key points that's actually quite differentiating itself from the Web2 space. So in terms of like the Web2 gaming and also the Web3 gaming, like the key difference is actually there is like an incentive program, which actually the concept of like play to earn was actually introduced by Axie Infinity. That's when like the whole GameFi like start taking off like last year. So I think that for projects, if you're looking into like the Web3 like gamify like spaces, I think community building is actually one of the very key points that you have to look into and also market yourself. And at the same time, since there's actually a token model like embedding inside, so you have to like I think work out a lot either with like experts in token designs to making sure that like your whole tokenomics design is actually sustainable for your whole like gaming ecosystem.
Yeah, thank you for the response. That actually leads to another question. What makes a token expert? What kind of skills does that person have?
I think that there are actually like standard models. Like I think a lot of like projects now trying to design like tokenomics like inside the games. They probably take a lot of them actually take the template from like Axie, which is actually the dual token model. Like one is with like staking for the DAO governance, and the other one is actually the in-game assets or the in-game tokens that's with unlimited supply. But at the same time, like what actually attribute to like the success of like the game or having like the user actually, I mean like gamers staying on your platform, it's like your token price has to be like sustainable at an attractive level. So like for scholars, because these kind of like the gamify like play to earn model is mostly like taken off in the Southeast Asia market, or like probably like South America, like people with lower income, and throughout like the game play, they actually projects actually coming out in the like a Web3 like gaming space. So like how do you actually make yourself like stand out from the others? One key point is like your game feature has to be fun. But within such a short like period of time, like for development, sometimes it's like there are so many like blockchain games, like even a lot actually diving into like MMORPGs or MOBAs or all these ones. But within such a short period of time, like you try to develop, sometimes it's actually very difficult to build out for a perfect like project. So instead of like just focusing so much and spending so much of the efforts, probably getting your art ready, like doing a lot of like the renderings, you probably will be also like, I would suggest that to be focusing on to make the tokenomics actually designed in the way that your like a supply is actually under control. So your in-game like a token with unlimited supply, you have to find like a mechanism to burn your token, naturally burn your token. Probably throughout the mechanism that like the in-games design, like players want to spend items like in-games or like or creating like special events, such as like, I think people are probably familiar with like there's a recent like move to earn project called Steppen. Like it has a really good like a tokenomic design in a way that even though that there were actually a lot of like move to earn like project being introduced previously, but I think that it's actually the key success for this project. It's like it actually got launched like very rapidly, but at the same time like it's actually token model is actually making a lot of sense. So it incentivizes like the community to stick to the games.
Right, yeah, there's been a lot of hype about Steppen recently, and that was a lot of really good advice for anyone that's trying to build out a tokenomic model for their games. On the topic of tokens, there's so much we can say. Besides fundraising or in-game utility, I'm curious if any other speakers have insight on what tokens can also offer to a project. Maybe we can start with Chris.
Yeah, we've had quite a few conversations with Web2 gaming companies or Web2 games companies in general, and they often ask like, why do we need a token? And I think a big part of, not only is the token you use that for fundraising and you use it to trade on exchange, but one way that we try to tell these companies is that you can view it as another marketing tool, because it's when the price increases, it actually gets the attention of the entire crypto community, and when things actually, and you can see with NFTs, with meme coins, with Steppen, as the price gets higher, it gets more and more interest. So it's almost like another marketing tool that the companies can use, and this token is a way to kind of bypass the traditional way of marketing and building community. Because in the Web2 world, I think there's a statistic out there, like 30–40% of all the VC money raised for consumer-oriented apps go to Google, YouTube, Instagram to buy ads. Now when these startups raise money through tokens, they can actually save that money and use it, and it can directly benefit the community and grab the attention of the entire community much more quickly. Yeah.
One thing that I'd like to add is it seems like with these apps like StepN they have a organic growth type element, which is really powerful. Like when your everyday users are buying into your token, like you're saying with the marketing, it's marketing itself, because like everyone's going to tell their friends and family about this thing that they had bought and invested in and been playing if they're benefiting and they want their friends to benefit as well, right?
Yeah, those are great points. You were mentioning instead of kind of using the money raised on marketing, when you raise from your own token, what else would a project be able to kind of utilize those funds for?
What else would they? Well, I mean, you can, besides the kind of marketing aspect of it.
Right. Because you brought up the statistic that majority or 40% of funds were used on marketing on maybe like Facebook or YouTube. What would, I guess, be your advice for instead of, putting funds there? What else could they be doing for their product?
Well, I mean, a lot of projects, in order to kind of build their community, they can do airdrops to their community. Like you want to get your community invested because, the token is it combines your community, it combines your shareholders, it combines your governance, and also your marketing, offline marketing army. So I think StepN probably, a big part of StepN's success, I think, was kind of word of mouth, and it's because people who hold these tokens, they have an incentive to go out and spread the word about your project, since they're all four of those things, right? They help. A big part of the token is the value capture, right? It used to just go to those big Web2 companies. Now value capture flows. The community can be part of that. They can be part of the upside in the project.
Yeah, I mean, I love airdrops, so I'm always down for that. So on the flip side, I guess, in the topic of tokens, if a project wants to start listing on an exchange, what kind of advice would you give them? What should they look for when they're looking for exchanges to list on, Henry?
So generally, exchanges are always looking for the basic stuff, right? You have community, what's the size of your community, what's the team, what's the story that you guys are packaging. But I think one of the more important things for the audience today is to understand if you are a project or a founder or a team, where do you go to get your go to market, and where do you go to ensure that you have a safe place to execute your roadmap and to list and to provide value back to your users? The first thing to consider is everybody wants to go tier 1, right? I want to go to a Binance, I want to go to an FTX and get my token listed there. But what if that's too far for you to reach? What if that's another 1 year down the road? One of the things to first consider is talk to those exchanges and say, if it's a tier 2 exchange, if it's maybe somebody that's still doing a couple $100 million a day in retail volume, to say, hey, what are you guys looking for that our community can give back to you? Right? That's one of the first things. Exchanges are always open to listing projects. In fact, on top of that, they're looking forward to giving you liquidity if you provide a proposition as to how you guys will make use of it. An example could be you making a proposal to an exchange to say, look, I see that you have a staking product on top of your exchange. When we list with you guys, we're willing to give X amount of emissions onto the staking product so that you can give enhanced rewards, enhanced incentives for your current users to continue trading, to continue paying attention to all the new products out there. So when you go to an exchange or you go to any venue for that matter, make sure you're not just asking them, what is it going to cost me to list? Because a lot of the times it's free. It's a matter of you making a well thought out proposal to say what value will you give back to them.
Yeah, go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, one thing I would just like to ask to follow up on that is, I've seen decentralized exchanges doing similar kind of incentive programs for new token launches, where like they'll the other protocol might offer some emissions for liquidity mining and stuff. So could you maybe offer some insight into when a token or when a project might want to list their token on a decentralized exchange versus a centralized exchange?
You mean to list on a DEX or a SEX? You mean either or?
Yeah, maybe would they at what point in the timeline would they be approaching like a DEX versus a centralized exchange?
Yeah, I mean, you can list it on DEX anytime you want, right? You just got to make sure where are you pulling that liquidity from, who's making your markets, how are you going to be engaging that, and how are you going to market it in a sense where your community sees that it's organic, there's interest, people want to speculate and want to help grow your environment. So a centralized exchange is a different process, right? A centralized exchange, you also want to make sure you take a look at who they are, their track record, their history. Out of the number of projects they listed in the last year that is your caliber or lower, what have they done with it, right? So a lot of times people go to centralized exchanges to die. Like it's just game over, right, after a few months. Is that gonna happen to you based on where you are on your roadmap and your size of your business? So I think you can list on decentralized anytime, making sure that you have the right liquidity sources, but with centralized, you do wanna be careful. Just because a Binance wants to list you, that could be the end of your business, right? Or that could be a place where you start to thrive. I'm not saying it's good or bad, I'm saying it really depends who you are and what you have to offer.
To follow up on that, that's very interesting. How does that lead to maybe the end of your project if you were to list on, a large centralized exchange?
Without disclosing too much, right? Sometimes for people who want to really get onto a centralized exchange and extract a lot of value by being visible, they do give up a lot behind the scenes. I can't say for sure, and I can't disclose anything of how those deals are done, but you just want to be careful and to say, again, back to my first point in the beginning of this conversation, to say, hey, instead of giving you guys X amount of our allocation unlocked for you to do whatever you want with, here's how we propose you get the most value out of it, right? Make a plan for them to support you. And I think that's the most important part.
Okay, thank you for that. So I have a question actually for Justin. What new features are being built on top of Solana, I guess, that would kind of help all the developers of today that are building all these giant products in the metaverse, for gaming, for more complicated tokenomics?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, I'd like to say that one of our main focuses is making sure that the network is stable and reliable and is continuing to scale as people expect. If you use Solana regularly, you may have noticed sometimes where there's a lot of congestion. So that's something that we're actively working on. But kind of like beyond that, of course, we're always looking at future features. So there's a lot of different things. I'm kind of more focused on trying to add more features or functionalities to transactions. So on a Solana transaction, needs to list all the different accounts that it might be accessing, and so allowing transactions to do, be bigger and do more things and interact with more contracts can just lead to more cool composability things, smart contracts working together, stuff like that. Another thing that's in progress is there's a project to add confidential payments on Solana, which is going to be probably pretty impactful on the ecosystem. What that entails is, like, imagine, we heard some projects talk about the transparency of the blockchain and how that's like a benefit, but also there's sometimes when you don't want everyone to know what you're doing. Maybe I don't want people to know what lousy NFT investments I've made. So sometimes some of that more sensitive information you might want to be private. So to start off, we have a new project coming up where you can send tokens to another wallet, but the amount of tokens is private. So that utilizes zero knowledge proofs and stuff to be possible. So I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's super exciting. So I think we're almost running up on time, but I did have a question for all of y'all. It's if you could build anything, what would it be? Or if there's one project that you really want to see this year, what would it be? You can, whoever wants to go first. Could be very vague.
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably a Web3 Discord killer. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it was a social, a social app that can kind of incorporate all, because right now all the communication is spread across Telegram and Twitter and Discord. So if there's a complete social app that
Okay,
can
so like
incorporate the discussion and also trading.
It sounds like something that was pitched earlier. So very interesting.
Honestly, I was going to say something similar to that. Yeah, it's so hard to keep up with all the different communication apps that we have, like Discord and Telegram, notifications, Twitter, everything. It's just like, it's really hard to know what's important amid all of that noise, and also a lot of scammy, spam stuff, like that's really annoying. So yeah, more tools to build that. I think there's like some cool like social network type things that are already being built. So I guess I don't know if I would personally build that. I think maybe I would want to build more privacy focused protocols. I'm not sure exactly what that would be, but I just think that the technology is interesting. So I'd probably build that next.
Yeah, and if no product, like what's the biggest problem that you want to be solved this year? For if you guys have an answer.
Well, I think that like the key things, even though I know this is a Solana hackathon, but I think that like this is actually quite an obvious trend that like I think a lot of like projects it's like they're trying to go like for cross-chain or like multi-chain, like being the project itself. I think eventually will probably just become like more like chain agnostics. Given that like the blockchain itself, like the whole community, it's a very community based. So for each of the like the ecosystem or like a blockchain ecosystem itself is still like a closed loop of the ecosystem of itself. So I think that like for all the liquidity to have like a free flow across chains, and also I think that like the chain agnostics is probably one of the key things you'll be looking to the future. And also another feature I will actually suggest for any kind of a project, it's to look into the interoperability of how your like your products is actually fitting into the whole ecosystem. And if you can be like an open source, collaborate with others, instead of just focusing on your own like a little projects or products, I think that eventually like I think it will be beneficially for your projects or like the ecosystem as a whole.
Yeah, I think Anne highlighted it really well, right? Like all these things that have to be, these are essential and core functions that need to be there in order for this stuff to be usable, right? And then now that there's metaverses, it's kind of going back into what we used to see in 2014, 15, 16. When I first started using, let's say, Bitcoin, it was because we're in a Minecraft room playing poker against each other and trying to use it to bet, right? And then that's how we actually got in touch and interacted with some of these assets, even though that's very Web 2, but hey, like people use it, people are attracted. So out of everything that's being built today at the hackathon, it's a question of how do we make it just much easier to use? And if we can accomplish that this year, I think we're doing very well.
Thank you for that. Thank you to the speakers for coming on stage and sharing your advice and thoughts. Lots of good advice for founders today. So I think what's coming up next is we're going to look at a couple 30-hour projects. So we're going to recap what we've been working on for the past 30 hours. A lot of developers have built on top of pre-existing protocols like Raydium, Orca, Serum, and Crema. So very excited to see what they're building. Thank you, speakers.
Okay. Thank you guys for sharing. Thank you, Cindy, for hosting. Okay. And now 现在我们到了下一个环节。